Welcome to the Journey Up. I'm your host, Tyrus Duncan, and today I have a very special guest. I'll let him introduce himself as I always do, but I've watched this guy's journey. I think we've known each other for around, 3 years now?
3 years.
Around 3 years, and it's just amazing. Every time I talk to him, he's always just encouraging. He makes me want to be better, and those are the type of people that you surround yourself with. So today we have Ryan Coleman. Ryan, how are you today?
Man, I appreciate that introduction. It's
Absolutely.
always good to listen. Like, it feels good to listen to the perspective of yourself from somebody else. You know what I mean? Especially as a perfectionist.
That is very true.
Yeah.
I had a moment in time where I would just walk up to people, and it would be people that I know most of the time. But I would say, "What do you think of me?" I don't think we ask that question enough.
No.
And we'll have our preconceived notions on what we think people think of us, and a lot of us are actually far better in other people's heads than we give ourselves credit for.
That's a fact.
We often look at people and be like, they probably think I'm this, and this.
Yep.
And truthfully, we never know until we ask.
Yep.
So, yeah. I do think you're a very encouraging person. I know that it gets hard for sure because I've known you for a while now, and I know you're a perfectionist, and you like to make things as perfect as possible.
Yeah.
And that's a way to drive somebody crazy. But that's the cost that comes with greatness.
Right.
And if you want something to be great, you'll have to carry that cross of and the burden of, man, I really have to strive towards perfection every day, even though I know that I will never be perfect.
Carrying the cross. That's a great way to explain it right there. I like that. I never thought about it like that, honestly, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, to get back to your question though, I'm feeling good, man. It's been, it's like, I think like we were talking about before, man, life is just like, you got to keep going regardless. Like, so you might as well make the best of it. I mean, you're not going to be 100% all the time, but hey, shit, I show up with a smile on my face. You know what I mean? I do what I need to do. I'm going to get the results I need to get. So,
Right.
yeah.
I'm sure you especially see that as a trainer, right? Not always showing up 100%, but having to show up anyways.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, or tell me your experience of people coming in not wanting to work out, but your job is to push them to essentially do what they signed up to do.
Yeah, man. It's actually kind of funny because on a regular basis, people come in, and I don't even think they realize how much they do it, but like people come in, they're just like complaining, like their mood's completely off. Like, I'm kind of in the, industry of like being able to, like, I need to be able to read people. Mm-hmm. So with the personal relationships that I developed through training, I'm essentially able to see where this person's at, and based off of that, I'm able to use that personal side to more or less get the best of them on any given day. But it's just really interesting because it's tough from a sense that, like, that requires me to be at this level. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just come in with this low baseline because then people are going to pick up on that. So it's like, for them, every single day, like, I'm this person that really can't alter their whole day. So, like, it's a form of art, man.
Yeah. I mean, leadership itself is an art, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think we don't put into perspective how much people lean on the leader. Or how much people have to follow the person that is in lead. And as a leader, it's like, even when you don't want to show up, you have to.
Right.
And even when you don't feel good, you have to at least portray some form of competence and realizing that people are dependent on you to put them in a direction that they hope that you're going to put them in.
Right.
And that gets extremely hard.
Yeah.
Through the highs and the lows. And the bad days, nobody cares if a leader has a bad day. They still want you to lead.
Right.
And even if they are asking you, like, how's your day? You still want to maintain this type of character. So it's like, oh, I'm good, even though sometimes we may not be.
Right. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's a lot of pressure, but then I also feel like at times like I can put more pressure on myself than I need to. Because then it's like when you actually communicate to them, like they like you see that they understand that you're a human.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that goes to what we were first talking about, how we don't really have a pure representation of ourselves through the minds of other people.
Yep.
And we'll look at other people and it's like, to that point, they probably see all my flaws.
All of them.
When really, most of the time we look at people to be more perfect than they actually are.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a deep conversation. We can get there, but I have on the show. I like to pull a card from my game called "We're Not Really Strangers."
Okay.
And basically, there's a question on there, and we'll just talk through the question. It's supposed to be played with a group of friends or strangers or anybody, but
yeah, get something to start the conversation.
yeah, and hopefully one day these people are going to sponsor me. We're praying for it.
Yeah. What's it called again?
It's called "We're Not Really Strangers."
We're Not Really Strangers.
And I don't want to play that card.
Yeah, go ahead, hit my boy with the sponsorship.
Yeah, that's weird too. Bear with me.
He said 0 for 2. It's all right. Is it just like all kinds of questions?
Yeah. I guess we can do this one. Do I seem like a morning person or a night owl, and why?
Man. Man, I would say night owl. I don't like you just have this like mystique to you. You know what I mean? Like there's I don't even really know how to explain it. You know what I mean? But it's like Tyrus. I've always known you to be just like this smooth guy, out the way, but like you're very creative. You get it done, and I know like creatives. I don't know. Creatives, I feel like, are usually not like very much like morning people. They just kind of like, this is when I'm gonna be in this zone, like during this day. So I don't. That's what came to mind.
Yeah, for the most part, very true. I wake up early, but I don't like to talk to people for the first 2 hours of work, which is hard because I go to work and I deal with people, and immediately, as soon as I walk in, people are like, "Good morning, Tyrus. How are you?" I'm like, "Man, I woke up less than an hour ago." But I'm not trying to have this conversation right now.
Yeah.
But kind of push through it. But I think naturally I am more of a night owl. For you, I would say in your nature, you're a night owl, but your discipline has forced you to become a morning person.
Yeah. Yeah. Literally, I mean, even going back to the military, like it was programmed.
Mm-hmm.
Like having to wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. Like I really don't want to do that. Like I'm at my best when I get to sleep, just then like go to bed, and then just wake up whenever. My wolf strap actually tells me that I should wake up on a regular basis at 9 a.m. But I probably do that once or twice a week, honestly.
What time do you normally go to sleep?
I try, like I really would like to go to bed at 10:30. Sometimes it ends up being 11, and that makes for an early day like today where you only get like 4.5 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But it balances out. Like, because on the weekend, I'll get like 24 hours of sleep in 2 days.
Yeah, you're rest.
Yeah, like for real. But I really do. I think like if I had if it wasn't for that discipline and like kind of my routine and my life is just surrounded around just getting up early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
now, have you always been very disciplined, or is that something you gained throughout the years?
definitely something that I gained. I think that I always had like talents. I was always like smart, but I didn't apply myself. You know what I mean? I just like I really didn't care. It was like I just remember growing up, like it was pretty much like playing sports, going and being with friends on some BS, and that was it. I didn't really care about like grades in school, teachers calling me, dumb, thinking that I didn't know stuff, but it's just like
I just don't care.
Yeah, I just didn't care. I wasn't applying myself. There wasn't much structure. Like there was structure because my parents would be on me, but like also they were very like, all right, you gotta learn some stuff the hard way.
Yeah.
So I think that team sports definitely help that, like playing football, rugby, all the different teams I was on. But that biggest shift was like the military. Like when I went in there at 20 years old, came back, bro, like I was light years ahead of anybody that I would usually be around. They were still like thinking like kids, you know what I mean? And I was like, damn, like we ain't even on the same wavelengths. Mm-hmm. And you start just kind of fading, outgrowing people, which isn't a bad thing, but it's hard, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just don't want to, you try to hold on to stuff more than you really need to.
Yeah. We do that. Holding on sometimes is comfortable.
Yeah.
Just because like we're used to it. But we have to I always think of this picture. There's a picture of the image of Jesus, and it was a little girl holding a small teddy bear, and behind Jesus' back he had a big teddy bear. But she was holding on to the small teddy bear, and he was telling her to let it go. And she didn't want to let it go because it was hers.
Right.
And she was comfortable. And she probably had it for years. It was probably a gift from somebody that she loved. She probably slept with it. She probably held it really close to her. Mm-hmm. He was telling her to let it go because he had better for her behind his back. And so many times we try to hold on to things just because they're comfortable, when in reality we need to let it go so we can get what's better for us. Because it's hard to get what's better for you if you're holding on to something that you need to let go.
That's crazy. That's actually really wild that you say that, just because of like how I was telling you what I was thinking about before I came here was literally in alignment with like that letting go piece.
Yeah.
Like when I was thinking about that that period of time where I had that difficulty, like it relates directly to that. So
yeah. And even it's crazy because sometimes we'll hold on to things that we know we need to let go of. In that case, the teddy bear may have been very special to her and still have value. But in reality, sometimes we be holding on to stuff that ain't got no value just because we've had it for so long.
Right.
And we'll kind of start to hoard things, whether it comes to people, whether it comes to things. And the reality is, if you don't let go of the things that you need to let go of, you don't have the capacity to even accept things that are meant for you. Or that are there for you to even get. So, yeah, sometimes you just got to let things go in order to gain. Or, as some say, you got to let things go so you can grow.
Yeah. And you're honestly not even really losing. You're gaining more than anything.
Yeah, it's almost like a replacement. And if you're making the right decision to let go of the right thing and you're replacing it with better, it's a value add. But we got to learn how to trust. Essentially, we got to learn how to trust God and be sincere in our actions and really believe that everything is working for our good. And when we let things go, things will not get worse, but they'll get better.
Yep.
Because that's why we hold on to things, right? It's like, I don't want to let this go because maybe I won't find better. Or maybe this is the best that there is. In reality, sometimes you literally need to let it go so you can get the best that there is.
Right. That's when it comes to that surrender piece. Being able to surrender to Christ. That's something that's like, man, because it's even like I've found myself just like going against the grain, and you're trying to do it based on what you want and like your goals, and it's just you, and it's not selfless. You know what I mean? It's not thinking and trying to put yourself in that kingdom mindset where it's like, we're trying to essentially be a reflection of Jesus. You know what I mean? But we're not putting in any of the actions in order to get there or surrendering to the process that's been laid right in front of us by a very, very strategic creator. You know what I mean?
Very. And even then, I'm learning that most of the times when we hold on to things and we lack faith, it's due to pride.
Mm.
And it's due to us thinking that our plans and our ideas and whatever we want is better than what God may want for us.
Right.
And when we learn to your point, surrender, what's essentially is letting pride go and trusting that all things are working for your good. When you learn to surrender and say, okay, I can't control this, and I've done all I can, and I'm not getting what I want, I trust that you're going to work things out for me.
Right.
That's when things start to look up. And things won't look up until you learn how to surrender and learn how to trust that maybe what you want literally is not necessary. And it's not a value add to you nor the kingdom.
Mm. Mm. So I got a question for you for the pride piece. So for somebody that's trying to, kind of get their pride out of that way, what I mean? Like, is that something that they completely eliminate, or is it something that's going to keep, like, reappearing? Like, what do you feel?
I think something that it completely, you have to keep getting rid of pride daily because there are new challenges that we're facing over and over and over again. So I don't think that it's something that we get rid of one time and that's it.
Right.
But I think it's something, the Bible said we have to die to ourselves daily. And to die to ourselves is literally to say, okay, I understand that my will and my way is not his way, and maybe my way is not the best way.
Right.
So I'm going to kill my pride and trust that you, being the author of my life, have things in control. But pride is a terrible, terrible thing. And when the scripture that says pride comes before the fall is very, very true because it definitely comes before the fall.
On a daily basis.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
It is.
Because I feel like, with most things, like, I feel like people in general kind of have this mindset that they do it one time and that's just it. But there's just it's almost an endless, it is endless, an endless cycle of levels that you're going to face, different things, but it's gonna look very much similar to things that you've learned before. But people just they just have this mindset that there's just this place that they hit where it's just like they're good, but that's not real.
Man, it's partially why I named this show The Journey Up, and it's open for everybody who is on a journey and they've reached the top, which I've been alive long enough to know once you reach the top of one mountain, there's another mountain there.
Right.
And the top of one mountain, most of the time, is just the bottom of the next. And life is about continuing to climb those mountains. And though you get to the top, and though you experience the battle from the first journey, it doesn't stop. So it's really like a continuance of life.
Yeah.
So the journey is literally denying yourself, trusting that everything is going to be okay, having hope, having faith that you'll make it to the next step and just continue on that path.
Man, yeah. And that path sometimes could get tough. And I think that's where, the discipline also comes in. Waking up and ensuring that first thing you're doing is putting God on your mind, putting the word in your head, just continuously reinforcing yourself and praying. Like, probably one of the most powerful things that I've done, like the step that I've taken in 2024 is like literally in the morning getting on my knees and just like sitting and praying. And I'll get to praying for 5. I looked up one time, it was 10 minutes I was praying, bro. But it felt so powerful, and it's like I'm learning how to pray even deeper. Different, like within that one prayer, being able to pray for others. Being able to pray for guidance. Within myself, like it's been a very interesting process, but like it's been also one of the things that like keeps me on that path. Cause like I don't know what I would do without that word someday.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or Yeah, just the direction in general.
So you weren't always on this path of trying to put God first.
Yeah, yes and no. It was like I was on, and then I had this period of time where I was just going through this like awakening. You know what I mean? Like dived a little bit into the psychedelics and stuff like that. Like just really started like woke, what most people would consider woke, I guess. But man, I was actually very much asleep. Um, and I started to, fall. I mean, and a lot of like the ideologies and principles and stuff like that that I learned, like they're good life principles, but there's a difference between Buddha and Jesus. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, like even just saying the name is the power behind it.
Right.
I think somebody was telling me like every time we breathe, like whether or not you believe in Jesus or not, you're essentially saying Jesus every time you take a breath. Like Yahweh, like what I mean? It's a thing. But yeah, man, I was drifting off. There was one point, man, where I knew I was too far gone. Where I was like, I was putting money on Buddha. I was putting money on Buddha, bro, and that was. I was like, okay, we gotta this isn't God.
Yeah.
This can't be God. You know what I mean? And what was the most offsetting to me is it felt weird to say Jesus at that time. Like I would pray, but I wouldn't say it in Jesus' name. Like it just didn't feel right, man. And during that time, like I was getting energy work by somebody, which I'm like, I'm cool off that. I don't know where somebody else's energy is. I don't even need none of that. I'll let God handle that.
Yeah.
But I felt like that was impacting my spirit as well. You know what I mean? It was like there was a lot of things that was going on that it was as if it looked like I was doing it right, but I really wasn't. You know what I mean? It felt right, but it truly just it wasn't. And it was just, man, like there's always those moments where it's like you reconnect, and God even brings these individuals around you. And Nick is one of those people. At his mom, like his mom would tell me things some days that I'm like, there's no way that came from anyone but God. You know what I mean? And then Nick he would start, because like I was noticing within my direct sphere of influence, there was a lot of people that were going through the same transition as me. Even Evangeline, which that helped us to, I feel like, really step closer into our union is when we really started following that kingdom man, kingdom woman mindset. But yeah, it was like a collective thing, like where it was like we were really all just like coming back to Jesus. Like we were never gone. It was just like the opposition, man. It'll get you to start drifting off, and you don't even realize it, man, because it feels like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. It's like I feel like I feel like I'm adding value. I feel like I'm adding impact. I feel like I'm making people better. But in reality, it's misleading. Because if a man that tries to guide himself, what I mean, is susceptible to anything.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be guided by Christ.
It's like a house without a foundation,
Yeah.
and that can't stand.
No.
And maybe it can stand for a second. I'm telling you, it's gonna fall eventually.
It ain't gonna sustain.
It's gonna fall eventually. So let's get to the real point of the show. Take me to the lowest place that you've ever been.
The lowest place that I ever been. See, that was one thing that I had to think about too, because it was like three pivotal moments. But like it was like for me, this there was this transition period from 2022 going into 2023. And this was very much in alignment with everything we were just talking about with like coming back to Jesus and stuff like that. I was in this place where I thought I had everything figured out. Like, bro, I had the team, I had like everything going for me. I was thinking I was about to be able to step away from training. I was just going to be doing, going off and speaking and just having a great time. And then reality hit. The team started falling apart because they were never meant to be um, in the first place. And like I was going through this period where it was like I knew that I needed to make a redirection. I knew that I needed to pivot, but I didn't. I didn't want to. I was like, man, the pain of having to do this is gonna be like. I'm like, man, it's almost like hitting a complete reset. Again, not surrendering. And bro, from me like not surrendering, like the amount of trials that just came with that, like it was just like everything that I felt like I was doing, it's just like wasn't having success. It just seemed like it was falling apart. You know what I mean? At least from my lens. From the outside looking in, it probably honestly didn't even look like that.
I did.
But that was because also I was very much able to keep my composure then. Like, just kind of move through it and continue to show up. But bro, like just that whole year of 2023, just going through that redirection, going from making my all-time high in business to having like a dip, like $30,000 dip, it was like, oh, we thought everything was sweet, and then things got real. But then also, I'm moving from a place where I'm more or less thinking about self than the community. I wasn't really like I was for the people, but it needed to be broader. And man, that whole year it just continued to like there was good things happening, but there was so much like hardship, bro. Like I remember we had just hit 1,000 followers on the Omni Fitness page, and then somebody hacked the page, had to do a complete reset on that. 2 days right after that, bro, I got hit by somebody, and they didn't have insurance, and I was going through like a billing discrepancy with my insurance company, so I wasn't insured. There was a gap during that time, so then it's like I got $10,000 worth of damage that I'm having to pay, out of money pocket for to get fixed, even to the point where it's just at least drivable. And then, man, it was just like, it was just like one of those years where I had to endure because all those adversities that I was able to endure and be able to, essentially surpass, like it prepared me for the next level. And it was so hard to surrender, man. Like like just having to surrender to like that process of having to restart. And it wasn't even a complete restart, but for me it felt like a restart. It was just like that, bro. That was probably one of the like hardest things I ever did. And because of me resisting so much within that, I had to go through even more hardship just because it was self-inflicted. I had to learn the difference, like, and understand that, like, man, like, I'm gonna go through pain, but I was suffering, and I was suffering not because I had to. I was suffering because I was choosing to. I didn't even realize what was going on, man. And that's what led ultimately to that moment where it was like it came full circle, and I just I started getting back right with Christ. And man, because there was times where like me and Van were getting into it, but it didn't feel like, if I'm like, what's going on? Like, I feel like this shouldn't be happening. Like, it was almost like it felt like I was being spiritually attacked. Like, we were getting into it, like everything was just kind of falling apart. So I remember one day me and Van were actually getting into it, and then I went out to my car because I was overwhelmed, anxious. I needed to take a second. Um, and then while I was out there, I kept my gun in my carrying conceal. And I kept my carry and conceal in my glove compartment, and I just started having these intrusive thoughts of like, take the gun. You know what I mean? You don't have to keep going through. You can end everything. You know, it can all be over. And then it was just like, that's when this overbearing force, energy, voice, everything, I felt it. I heard it. It was like, you know what I mean? Like, think about all of the people that would be directly impacted if you do that. Like, it was literally like one of those moments, bro, where it was really one of those moments where it was like, man, I don't think I've ever quite seen the power of Christ until that day. And it's happened in other stages of my life, like during times when I was in the military and stuff like that. But I think that was truly the point where I was like, okay, what I'm experiencing, a lot of what I'm experiencing is something that's not even physical, it's spiritual. It's something that's beyond the eyes. It's something that we can't even see. You know what I mean? And if we don't take the proper time to get our minds right with Christ, like that's we're gonna keep suffering. You know what I mean? Like it was. I just. It was surrender. If there was like one theme of like 2023, man, it was like really surrender. And what makes it so beautiful is just like I was proud of myself because I was still able to show up. I was still able to, you know, have those high moments while I was, you know, dabbling in the ebbs and flows of the lows. And it's crazy because I be listening like to other people's stories. I'm like, man, it's crazy how many other people go through like a very similar thing. Like, I literally was listening to the clip where Rome was talking about essentially how I don't remember the exact story of how he got there, but it very much seemed like it was one of those situations where it was like, wow, this is there's something going on. You know what I mean? When you start to see those similarities, you're able to connect the dots. And like, I mean, I ain't gonna toss nobody's name out there. Like, I didn't had that talk with several of my brothers that didn't had those thoughts. And I don't really, what made me, what was scary at that point is like, I thought about all the people who did decide to make that decision. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And allowed, like, essentially, like, they were just taking over, man. And it can happen that quick. And yeah, bro.
I think essentially that idea, the feeling that takes over is, man, I just want peace.
Yeah.
And it's quite scary for someone to get to the place to where they're so low that they think the only way for them to experience peace is to just not be here.
Right.
But it's also scary because I get it. I get it. How people could get to that place. And it's like, well, I've tried everything else. Even get to the place where everyone say, try Jesus. I tried Jesus. But he didn't give me what I wanted in this moment. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and I want to be very cautious and careful around this subject because it's sensitive for a lot of people. But essentially what that is our lack of ability to surrender within the moment and our lack of the ability to put our pride aside and trust that all things are working for our good, right, and that everything will be okay. It's taking the trust and the power out of the hands of God and putting it into the hands of our own. And something you said there that was it resonated a lot with me. You said, I wasn't suffering because I had to, but I was suffering because I chose to. And it's like, how many people are suffering because they are ignorantly choosing to continue to suffer?
Right.
Or even not even ignorantly. How many people are suffering because they are making decisions that are causing them to suffer more.
Yep.
It's like, what do you do about that? And I think a lot of people have that question. It's like, I've done everything. I'm doing this. I'm going to church. I'm working my business. I'm working my job. I'm showing up every day for everybody else. But I still feel terrible. What do I do? And you said that voice, that feeling that came over you just said surrender.
Surrender.
And literally, I think you have to surrender to the will of God. And I know there are a lot of people who question God or question the idea of God. And I try to simplify it and make it as simple as possible when I explain who I believe God to be to people. And they're like, who is God? What is God? I don't get it. And I keep it as simple as possible by saying God is a being higher than self.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do all the things that we can do, we leave the rest to him so he can do all that he is going to do.
Right.
But I think it's very important to have community around you. You have to have people around you who are actively living the life that you want to live and who you know are actively going to push you to become greater. People that you can look up to. You have to have those people around you because they are able to point out the bad decisions when they are made. That's the job of a leader, right? It's like maybe as a leader, I still make terrible decisions, but my job as a leader is to try to make as little amount of terrible decisions as possible and help others when they're making terrible decisions also.
Right.
It's like, do this instead of this, and you'll see better results.
Yep.
And that starts by removing the pride, by even coming to somebody and say, hey, I have a question. Hey, can you hear me out on this subject? You remove the pride and let humility come in so you can learn, so you can grow. So maybe you don't run into the tree when somebody says, hey, there's a tree right there. Again, like the job of a leader, they go first. Maybe they bump their head a couple of times. Maybe they hit the tree first, but they survived. You'd be surprised how many leaders, and I think more leaders have failed than people that follow.
Yeah.
Which is what makes a great leader, in my opinion, is the one who has made the most choices and had the most decisions wrong, but learned from the wrong decision. That's what a great leader is, someone who learns from the failures.
That's a fact.
And they have the ability to stop others from making the same failure that they've already made.
Yep.
So it's like, maybe I see a tree in front of me and I'm running and I accidentally hit the tree and I get up. I'm saved. Some people get lucky enough to be saved. Others do not. But the job of a leader is to warn the people behind them, like, hey, you may want to be cautious. There's a tree right here that you may run into.
Mm.
And if you really want to be saved, you have to listen.
Right. Most importantly.
And especially, that's why God is so important. That's why God is so important.
And I think another aspect to the issue is like a lot of people don't know how to follow either, because I think that, not even I think, like I very much believe that being a great leader, in order to be a great leader, you have to be a great follower. And you have to be able to put yourself in the shoes of others so you can truly have that move from grace, empathy, compassion. I didn't used to do that as a leader. I literally had to have that conversation with my friends. He was like, bro, you just got to be compassionate. I was like, compassion? Dang, I'm not being compassionate yet.
Man, and that's huge because, you come from the military. I know that the leaders in the military are very apathetic. They don't care about how you feel. They just care that they get the results.
Right.
And I think that is so often, and not just in military, but in leadership in general, that people are so apathetic because they forgot where they came from. And they got into a place now to where they're able to have the foresight to see so much before other people can see it, that they don't care about where the person is. They just care about the results.
Right.
It's like, you want to be a great leader, get some empathy.
Yeah.
Learn how to sympathize with the people that you're leading. Remove the apathy and understand that people actually do have feelings and emotions, and those play a huge part in the actions that we decide.
Yep.
But I do think that it's a shortage of leaders who have compassion and empathy and even talk about those things to even understand what they are.
And I think that's like my philosophy when it comes to leadership is like incorporating like all of those mindful aspects into it. Because when I even think back to the best leadership, which the military, like you would think the leadership is good. The leadership was terrible in the military. From what a lot of what I experienced, it was a lot less, competent leaders than there were the ones that actually, lead and by great example. But I had the honor of having, one of them, and very much he came from the other side. He went from being, an enlisted soldier to an officer, and for anybody who doesn't know, like when you're enlisted, you're pretty much like, just the normal workers. And then when you're the officer, you're pretty much like the ones who calling the shots, the managers, owners, stuff like that. But he had that experience on the other end, so he was able to be cool with this, you know what I mean? And we naturally, you're gonna respect that more out of your leader, like if they respect you.
Yeah, because they get it.
Yeah, because when you're trying to rule with the iron fist, like bro, like I don't want to be led. Like I'm almost trying to figure out ways to get you out of here.
Yeah, like who are you talking to? Because you don't even know what we going through.
Don't know what we going through, man.
And those be the ones that get to me. It's like, of course, you have foresight. Of course, you have the wisdom and the experience, per se, to do what you're able to do at this moment. But you want to be a good leader, you got to relate to the people.
Yeah.
Get out there in the fields with them and actually learn what they're going through within that moment instead of just analyzing and just being highly analytical. Because I know you and I both are very analytical when it comes to a lot of different things. Yep. But if you have analytics and you remove the emotion, man, that's a setup for a disaster, essentially. Because people are emotional beings, and not everybody has a good gauge over their emotions and know how to control them. Emotional intelligence is not something that's really taught. And you almost have to seek and search the answers and the vocabulary to understand your emotions, which most people are not going to do.
So, I'm almost amazed by people who are able to remove their emotions. That doesn't even come to me naturally. Like, I'm so, like, my passion can come off as aggression. So I'm, like, naturally, like, emotional. Like, I'm very much logical, but like there was time I had to learn how to like manage it because I used to lead with my emotions, like straight up.
What would you say was the leading emotion for you?
Oh, dang, that's a good question. It's a good question. Overall, it's just like that passion, you know what I mean? Like when I really feel like I love something, like it's hard for me not to go all in. And like that can like if somebody is like crossing that boundary or like not doing it to the standard, like it can almost come off as like anger. You know what I mean? Like very much. Like I will say actually, like I used to have like anger problems. Like that was a thing. And I mean, to this day, like I feel like my mouth, like if there's anything, like I got a mouth on me. You know what I mean? I'll talk like I'll make somebody feel some type of way with my mouth, and that's something that I had to work on. You know, like just how I articulated myself, like some like cause I can feel it. Like when I'm just somebody give me the mode, I'm just like it used to be bam, like that snap, man. Like a pit bull, but I had to, just tone it down a little bit. Like it's good to have that passion, but like you're not gonna get no results out of anybody with aggression either.
Right.
They're likely you're gonna get yourself in even more problems. So I had like Van, she helped me navigate that really good, cause like If there's one thing a black woman's gonna do, they gonna check you when you need to get checked. And I wasn't used to that. Like, I mean, complete honestly, like, I mean, I was on a whole different side of the cultural bridge before. I was with a white woman. I didn't experience that. You know what I mean? Like, there's that certain boundary, and it's like, oh. But then once she started doing that, I started realizing, like, oh, like, I probably do this to other people, but they're just not putting that boundary there.
Yeah, a lot of times, quite frankly, they're probably scared.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not about to check him.
Yeah.
But your lady should be like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're not about to talk to me like that.
No.
But that's some credit to you also, because it takes something to take criticism essentially and be like, maybe they're right.
Yeah.
Because I think too often when someone criticizes something that we do, most of the time we immediately want to go into attack mode.
Defense.
Straight defense mode.
It is, man.
And it's like, that's not true. Then I started thinking, I said, man, if so many people start saying the same thing about me, there might be some truth in it.
Gotta be some truth.
Especially if these people don't know each other.
Right.
Especially then.
Especially if they don't know each other.
That causes a bit of introspection to where you literally have to sit with yourself and ask yourself, are these things that these people are saying really true? And what do I do about this?
Right.
Because if they're saying it, I've got to do something.
Right.
Especially if it's negative.
Yeah.
Well, also on the positive end, a lot of different people say a lot of positive things about us. I never understood people like don't judge, but they only mean that when it's like negative.
How do you not judge?
I think everything that we do is like dependent on judgment.
Yeah. In some way, shape, or fashion.
Good job is a form of judgment. We don't get offended when that happens.
Like somebody sets that standard.
Yeah. I think judging is very important. I mean, the Bible even says to judge. You know, people pull the scripture that says judge not, but they don't ever finish. Yep. It says judge not lest you be judged. Yep. And it also says to judge a righteous judgment. Judgment is very important.
Yeah.
I think you have to learn like to judge a righteous judgment and to have some substance behind the judgment. Don't be going out and saying stuff to try to hurt somebody's feelings.
Right.
But yeah, you got to judge righteous judgment.
Yeah. And that takes discernment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To be able to make those judgments.
What would you say were the most effective things that helped you out of that dark place?
Man, first and foremost, like, thank you, Jesus, for Evangeline, DeAndre, Lease, Middleton, soon to be Coleman. Man, like having her by my side, like going through it with me and just like sticking through it, you know what I mean? Just there's nothing greater than to have like a partner who's really with you, right. You know, because it's like it feels like one of those cliche stories that you hear where you and your partner, you know, you got it out the mud, and the next thing you know, you did it for a certain amount of time, you get successful, but like that's what I envision that with her. It's like it's an energy that I feel with Evangeline, and it's like there's nothing that we can't do together. Mm-hmm. That's how God has, like, her name is literally a messenger. Her means a messenger from God. You know what I mean? That's what God has blessed me with, the messenger from God. And man, she would drop some wisdom on me. It was God talking through her, bro. And she'll go get in the Bible. She's a prayer warrior. Like she played, first and foremost, played a huge role. So like I definitely gotta always pay it forward to her. But also, man, I think it goes back. I tell people all the time, like, I don't like to use the word like motivation, because 9 times out of 10, we're not going to be motivated to do something. You just got to have structure, have a plan, have, a routine. Because once you have that plan and you're able to commit to a routine around that plan, the only thing you got to do is just show up and just go through it. Even if sometimes that means going through the motions. If you got to go through the motions to get to where you need to get, then cool, just do that. So man, like every day, like I said, like waking up, Like the first thing I'm waking up I'm waking up in the morning to God, to prayer, to a smoothie, workout. And even when I'm working out, I listen to podcasts. And lately, a lot of it's been like Myron Golden, because I like how he mixes like business and God together. Ed Millett, which I just found out that like this dude's like a $400 million dude. Like I didn't know. I never thought about how much money he made or anything like that. I was just like, cool dude to listen to. You have some good guests on there, but again, I think it's like a wavelength. It's frequency. It's something that you want to be on. So like that's why I was naturally attracted to it. So stuff like that. I think fitness is like a very pivotal part of my life, that kind of helps like running in times of stress. Like if I feel like I'm spiraling and stuff like that, man, I'll go out there and run 5 miles, and it's therapeutic.
Man, fitness. I've just recently started lifting weights and everything in the gym this year, and it's taught me a lot. I've always thought about it on a practical way, but like actually doing it, it does teach you a lot about life, and it correlates a lot to life. It's like the necessary struggle and the necessary form of suffering in order to gain strength. Because essentially that's what you're doing when you're lifting weights. You're putting yourself through literal suffering, literal struggling, and you're literally breaking your muscles down so they can grow, so they can become stronger, so they can be bigger. It's like, isn't life the same way?
Yeah.
If we faint not. I've been meditating on that scripture. I think it's in Galatians this week. That it said that good will come to. Let me find the scripture because I don't like to mess things up. Yep. But I sent it to a couple of people this week. It said, "And let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." And that's a big if. It's like you shall gain if you don't give up, basically. So it's like while you're in the gym, and the best way to get your muscles to grow is to train to failure and to continue until you can't continue no more. It's like life is the same way. If you want to experience strength, you're going to have to challenge yourself, and you're going to have to go through these different things. And I've even thought about that this most recent season of my life. I was asking God a lot of things, like, God, how could you call me to be a pivotal person and freeing themselves from their own minds while I'm sitting here struggling deeply with my own mind and my own thoughts? And what I got from it basically was, if you want to see how strong you truly are, let's see how strong you are once I place you in these battles.
In the storm.
Let's see how strong you are once I put you in the storm. You think your boat is really going to float on the water well? Let's see how it is when I send this storm to you. And again, to that scripture, we shall reap if we faint not. Like, if you don't give up. That's basically what that means. Like, if you faint not, that means if you don't give up. If you keep going and if you keep trying as hard as you can. That's how you gain the strength. And why is strength important, people may ask. It's like strength is everything. You would hope to be strong enough for somebody else to lean on if they're not as strong. Yeah. And not just that, you would hope to be strong enough to lift yourself out of hard times when you're in them. That's why strength is important. And without it, what can you truly do? But yeah, man, the gym is teaching me a lot.
Hey, you know where the safest place of a storm, like a tornado, would be?
They say in the middle of it.
The eye of the storm. But in order to get to that eye of the storm, like, you gotta dig. You gotta walk through. You got flying cars coming at you.
Yeah.
You might freaking start to float up in the air, might get sucked in. You know what I mean? But the closer that you get, the lesser the turbulence is.
Yeah.
And it starts to balance out. While you're in the midst of madness,
Yeah, and storms are completely natural. They're also completely necessary. Sometimes they're used as a reset, and we have those storms that we may need to run from, or we have those storms where we need to stay put, depending on what the storm is. And wisdom is essentially gaining the knowledge to decide during the storm that I'm currently in, do I need to stay where I am or do I need to flee?
Ooh, that's good.
Because making the wrong decision within one of those storms will end your life. Like maybe you stayed in a storm that you should have ran away from, and your life is over.
Right.
Or maybe you left when you should have stayed, and now your life is over. Because to your point, sometimes the safest place is the middle of the storm, and if you try to run away from it, it's only going to kill you.
It's get worse.
So it's like you ask yourself, is this a storm that I need to stay in, or is this a storm I need to flee from?
Ooh, that's a bar. That's definitely a bar.
Man,
yeah. Discernment again. It all comes back to discernment.
It does.
Yeah.
I appreciate this conversation so much. I appreciate you and your ability to know what you want and create a plan and to become as disciplined as possible to achieve said goal. Because that's what a lot of people lack. And most people don't get what they want because they don't know what they want. Right. And even when they know what they want, they don't know how to schedule or set a plan in order for them to get what they want.
Right.
Because we both know if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yes, sir.
So you need a plan.
From the legend himself, he's been that would also honestly be another person outside of Evangeline that I would say has been like really pivotal, especially from like the business side, is Murdoch. And man, that brother, I tell you, like them plans. Like if there's one thing about me, if I got a plan, I'm gonna execute. Like I'm gonna get it done. But then just having somebody that can actually do that, and then also like hold you accountable through it, you know what I mean? Like that's been so important. But then also having somebody that's at that same level, right, as a peer that has gone through this like very similar stuff, if not the same thing that you're going through, that you can call upon at any given time in order to be able to get some type of guidance in order to make it past your storm. You know, in order to give a recommendation of, you know, hey, you know, maybe you should stay put or maybe you should run away from this storm. Right. You know, having those type of individuals on different levels and different capacities is so important. And yeah, plenty. Like I remember I almost got into it with somebody because they said that they feel like you don't need a plan. And I'm like,
good luck.
Because I'm like, even unintentionally, like you unintentionally make plans on a regular basis.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's a part of life. And the more that you can get really broken down into that plan and really like start to manipulate it, especially putting it in alignment with God and what God already has for you. You know what I mean? Like the abundance that comes in. Like I think I read something that said, you know, we don't need to chase abundance. It's something we step into. You know what I mean? Like it's truly something that if you're doing what you're supposed to do with all the right things that you have, it's gonna come. That's part of it.
Yeah.
God already set it up. He already orchestrated this all. Like that's it.
Yeah. People neglect to accept the fact that, you know, there is an order to a lot of things, and without order, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
God said, "Let everything be done decently and in order." So it's like, let things be done in decency and order.
Right.
And if you don't have no order, you got chaos, and you can't succeed with that.
Nope.
In closing, I always give people a chance to encourage the people to give them a message, and now it's your time to shine.
Yeah, if I was to leave with a message, you know, I would first and foremost say, like, in the age that we live in, especially with social media, disconnect and use it for a purpose. You know what I mean? Don't get stuck in the wave of going on there and, you know, just keeping up with the Joneses. Like, you're always gonna be in your head if that's the case. You know, you have to, like, I use social media, I go on social media, I post what I need to post, I let the people see me, I'm getting inspiration, I'm doing what I need to do. It's like a business to me. Mm-hmm. Because I can't let that program me, right? So being able to disconnect from that first and foremost, and just pour in all of that energy into, you know, fulfill, first and foremost, finding your purpose, taking time to, you know, get right with God, get right with Christ. I think that that's a major part of truly being able to understand what your purpose is. You know, it's kind of hard to know your God-given purpose if you don't know God. So, you know, taking the proper time to do that, and then just aligning with everything that will ultimately allow you to fulfill that. Put on tunnel vision if you need to, and just completely lock in, man. Like, most people might think that I'm boring, but like, outside of like being who I am, a servant leader, you know, health and wellness expert, like, I'm at the crib, I'm on the PlayStation, I'm not doing anything that I don't need to do. I'm not spending no money that I don't need to spend. Like, I'm cheap, and some people people joke with me all the time. I walk around in Crocs. I don't have to walk around in Crocs. Like, I'm just cheap. I don't want to go buy no shoes.
Right.
Like, these mugs are comfortable. You know what I mean? It was once a dream for me to be able to wake up every single day and go to work in sweatpants and hoodies and crew necks. And yeah, I'm grateful to do that. But it's just, it was part of that process. You know what I mean? And then just know that you're gonna go through some stuff. You're gonna go through some stuff more than you're not gonna go through some stuff. But your ability to continue to show up is what is going to continuously make you a better person, and it's going to continuously evolve you. Like, I tell you, man, I'm a master chameleon at just like blending in. Like, you know, people will never know. Like, I don't show my cards, and sometimes I do, because I think it's important also to show to show the people you're human again. Right. You know, show them your humility and like let them know, like, hey, you go through stuff. But that's one thing that I wrote on my board last year, quoted Murdoch again, is less visibility, more profitability. Because it's a luxury to make yourself accessible. You know, you ain't just gonna walk out on the street and see Denzel. So what if I think of myself in that same type of regard? Right. Why should I allow myself to be so easily accessible?
Very true. So
it's a healthy combination of being vulnerable, but also not being like, just because I'm free doesn't mean I'm available. And it's not trying to be arrogant, but it's like, this is a boundary of mine. You know, you got to see yourself for who see yourself for who God sees you to be. Put yourself in God's lens. Mm-hmm. That's where it gets powerful. Man, and I'm still working on it.
Boundaries. People they be feeling some type of way about boundaries, don't they?
Yeah.
What you said, just because I'm free doesn't mean that I'm available.
Right. People call me all the time, bro. I will not pick up their phone, family, everything. I'm like, hey.
I would say sorry, but I'm not.
Yeah. Like, I'm really not. Like, y'all know I don't like to talk on the phone anyway. Like, you could probably send me a voice memo or a text message, and that'll be more effective. It's like, I hate talking on the phone. I like FaceTime. People do not FaceTime me. Like, I see people getting FaceTime. People do not FaceTime me. Cause I'm like, why? Like, what we really FaceTiming for?
No, really, yeah.
If we want to connect, we go. You know, like, I'm more like in person. Let's connect. You know, chop it up. Let's go get some food. Like, I ain't about to sit on FaceTime.
Yeah, you know? I think people got to understand the necessity for boundaries, though, especially if you're trying to protect something.
Yeah.
And especially if you have something of value. It's like, in order for somebody to have certain access to you, they have to gain a certain level of trust,
Yep.
or they're not about to get access to where I place this boundary, because there is something of value behind these boundaries.
Yep.
And if you want access, you have to gain this trust.
Right.
And even then, you have to also have a level of respect.
Respect, yes.
Like, the bank is only open from, I don't know, 9 to 5, right? And even then, not everybody has access to go behind the desk to get into the vault where all the money is.
Yep.
You have to have a certain level of trust in order to be able to do. Not even everybody that work there has the access to get into the vault that has all the money,
Yep.
to all the value. And even then, it's only open from this time to this time.
Right.
So it's like, it's respect, it's trust, it's all of this. And you don't get access to this until you gain the trust.
Yeah.
And even then, we got some business hours.
Yeah.
Because outside of that, I need my rest.
Man, straight up.
I need the value needs to remain valuable.
Yeah.
Because as things, to your point, as things become more visual or visible, they often lose the value too.
Yep.
So it's like some stuff don't even have the value anymore because you've seen it so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that would be my advice. Get you some boundaries for sure.
Yeah, because it's gonna protect your peace. You know what I mean? And if you're somebody out here that's really shaking and moving and doing what you need to do, you're not gonna have energy to really entertain a lot of other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a simple guy. I like to go to the movies on the weekend. I got AMC Movie Pass. I go a couple times a month. I sit at home and I play my PlayStation. Like, I don't want to be bothered.
Right.
Like, let me have my 72 hours, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I give all of me to y'all all the time. Like, this is.
And that's not to say that, we have business hours.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when you need to experience the value, we got times that it's open.
Right.
But the value also has to be protected for it to remain valuable.
Yeah. Because if I deplete, the value's going to deplete. This is,
It's a lot to it. Yeah. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man. I feel like we keep talking for hours.
We could. It keep going. We end up like a Joe Rogan podcast.
3 hours.
But we going to protect the value.
Yo.
I might have you back on here again, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's been a blessing. It's always a pleasure to experience your presence.
Yeah.
So.
We got to bring you on the podcast, man. You were on the back end, the backside of it. I think we wanted to bring you on for an episode. But yeah, we're gonna be rebranded Unapologetically Mindful podcast, especially like with us stepping more into like marriage and stuff and entrepreneurship. Like, we don't see it like that, but a lot of people from the outside looking in, when they see me and Van, like, they really do get inspired, and I constantly get that reminder, and I'm like, okay,
I'm very inspired for sure by y'all.
Yeah,
something to look up to. Not everybody is able to find a partner that understands them. And from the outside looking in, it looks like you two really understand each other.
We're the same person. She's 3 days older than me. January 24th, 1995. January 21st, 1995. Literally, like, it's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
But we're different in a lot of ways.
It's necessary to have difference in partnership. That's the only way most of the time it works.
Right.
But difference, you can be compatible while also being different. You don't have to be the exact same to be compatible.
That's a fact.
And actually, more times than not, if things are